Welcome, everybody. I am beyond thrilled that we get to have this time with Ali Abu Awwad, who over the years has become a friend. I admire you so much and the work that you do, Ali. As I said during services, I think this is the 4th time that Ali has come to IKAR. One of them was virtual during the COVID years. But I just want to be straight with us. I think that many people in America, including or maybe especially American Jews, have a lot of ideas about the Palestinian people and about the conflict in Israel-Palestine, and yet have never talked to or listened to a Palestinian actually speak and share their own stories and their own experience and perspective. And it's life-changing to actually encounter one another and to be forced to move beyond our preconceptions of one another and actually begin to care about each other's stories, to find points of connection between our yearnings, our struggles, our fears, and our great hopes for the future. And for me, the relationship with you has been one of those that has helped me shape my perception of what is possible in a region that is so deeply mired in narratives that each people brings to the table, that it often feels like the only direction that we can move in is further and further away from one another. So Ali, I know it's exhausting to do this, to keep coming for, I don't know, has it been 2 decades that you've been traveling around and telling your story, different versions of the same narrative over and over and over again, but it actually matters. And I want you to know that your presence here today in this Beit Midrash, it makes a difference for us and for our hearts. And we want to be allies and we want to be friends in the journey toward a different kind of future for you and your family and for us and our families and for all of us together. And so thank you for continually opening your hearts. I know that you will speak to us today about a lot of pain and also trauma, and to repeat those stories takes something out of you. And I think that Stephen said you're at the tail end of a 2-month tour right now, so I'm sure you're exhausted. Thank you, instead of napping, for coming to speak to us. We're really grateful to have you. So Ali is a world-recognized Palestinian activist and the founding leader of the Tagir, is that how we say it? The Palestinian National Nonviolence Movement, promoting nonviolence and self-development to guarantee a nonviolent solution to the conflict. He lives in Beit Jala in Palestine. And we will hear over the course of our short time together a little bit of Ali's story, of his background. He'll tell us a bit, I hope, about your family and how you came into the work and came to really hold the position that you do about why nonviolence is so central to whatever steps we're going to be taking to move toward a shared society, a just society, and a peaceful future. And then I'm really curious, and we'll ask you questions about this movement that you are now the founding leader of, and ways that we can be supportive of your work and continue to advance and amplify calls for a different kind of envisioning of the future. So Ali, thank you so much for joining us. And I would love if you'll start, we can applaud. I would love if you can start by sharing with us. Some people here have heard you speak many times, and many people here are hearing you for the first time. So to tell us a little bit about your journey, your story, and how you came to be this incredible leader in the nonviolent movement.
Thank you so much, and Shabbat Shalom. Before anything, I would like to introduce my partner, Stephen. And can you stand up? And don't sit. I want you to sing with me birthday for this man. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to Stephen. Happy birthday to you. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you on your birthday, but I have to say that without Stephen, I couldn't be here for years. So thank you, Stephen. Yes, I'm exhausted, but you cannot be tired of yourself. And this is who I am. It's not what I do. And if you would have told me like 20, 25 years ago that I will be here sitting next to you speaking about any hope, then I would tell you that you lost your mind. Because life is not exactly about this when you grow up under a military system that manage your feelings, your thoughts, your body, your dreams. And growing up to a refugee family, and my mother, who has become one of the leading women of PLO, Palestinian Liberation Organization, living with a family that has become a target for the Israeli security all of my life. Watching my mother get arrested many times because of her political activities. Finding myself in 1987 throwing stones on soldiers, that doesn't make sense. I mean, 15 years old throwing a stone on a 60-ton Merkava tank, that is not exactly violence. Even though stone can hurt a human being, but you don't think about it. I mean, the purpose was not to hurt. The purpose was to be heard. And it didn't happen. I mean, I found myself in prison with my mother, serving years in the Israeli prison. Even though I lost, my dreams and my university study, but I found myself in one of the best universities that you can imagine, the prison. Because political prisoners has managed to create a whole system based on 5 committees to lead and manage our daily life. So I got the best education. Big part of my English came from there. My Hebrew has become like my Arabic. And I didn't waste time to the level that when I used to tell my friends that I'm so busy, I'm sorry for not being in touch with you, they couldn't understand what the hell I'm talking about because I'm in prison. But, so day after day, month after month, I wanted to see my mother in her other prison. And Israel refused. So after 3 years, I didn't give up. We decided to go for a hunger strike to see each other. 17 days of starvation that brought us to meet each other in prison. And when I saw her, I came back to my prison very, very confused, very conflicted, because I started judging myself, telling myself, all of these years, I think we are strong, resistant, revolution. We have never achieved anything. And suddenly, by my empty stomach, I managed to see my mother. Then I started learning about nonviolence in prison, actually. And after 4 years in prison, I was released by Oslo Peace Initiative with my mother. And we were expecting to switch this identity of being revolutionary people against Israel to become citizens of a state and the values of our life to change. But this didn't happen because the failure of the peace process, the lack of establishment of an independent Palestinian state, and we couldn't promote law, honestly, and we couldn't create social values that will guarantee some kind of good neighborhood with Israel, including the corruption that we start facing from our side, from our own leadership. Extremist, violence, attacks against Israelis, the settlement movement and the growth of that. People lost their hope, including international investment in the conflict, not in the solution, by other outsiders. So 2000 was another intifada, another uprising, which has become more militant. And one of the victims of that intifada was my brother. I was badly wounded by a settler bullet and evacuated to Saudi Arabia. And after 1 month, I learned that my brother Yusuf, 31 years old, was stopped by a group of Israeli soldiers. And as a consequences of an argument with the soldier, this cost him his life. So, you know, all of my life was about prices that I have to pay. And then this price, I cannot stand it. Because it's much easier to lose land, rights, dreams. But losing him was something else. Losing him was like losing Palestine, losing my desire to live. And who on earth has the right to take my brother, my innocent brother life? For what? What worth such a price? On the other hand, I become so angry, because anger will lead you, especially when you even live over there. People led by their emotions. But I couldn't imagine myself killing a human being. I mean, I know how to do it. I was trained as a fighter, but I couldn't. On the other hand, I'm not a killer. And why I am pushed to that position by this system? I was so weak to do anything, and so weak to do nothing. And I did nothing. I was struggling with my family, my mother, my brothers. And you are not the same person. This is not the same conflict. This is not the same family. And the conditions keeps you just getting angry day by day. And this is not the past that you need to reconcile. It's my daily reality to lose my rights every day. I was lucky not to lose my mind. Until 1 year after, my mother received a very strange, weird phone call through my brother by an Israeli Orthodox Jewish father. Starts saying that there is a group of parents in Israel who have lost someone in the conflict, and they want to come to us, they want to pay condolences, and they stand for us. They stand with us also for our legitimate rights. And for me, that was shocking, because this language, you don't hear it from the other side. And these people are absolutely fake. This cannot happen to that level. And it was shocking that an Israeli called me to visit my house, because Israelis used to be there, but they never call. They just come to destroy, to arrest, to damage. These are not the Israelis that I know. And I was shocked when my mother agreed to host them. She even called Arafat. He told her, for me, you are a leader. You know what you're doing. Do whatever you think is right to do. She brought Fatah leaders. She brought the mayor. She brought Palestinian bereaved parents. And by the end of the day, they show up. And after 30 minutes, everyone in that room was crying. I couldn't imagine until that minute that Jewish people can have tears. Can you imagine that? Or have humanity? Or being victims? No. How come? No way. These are the victimizers. And that was the only moment in my life I felt equal with Jewish people, with Israeli people. And I realized that because we are not able to share what is on the ground, we are forced to share what is underground, which is the bodies of our beloved ones. And I saw a victim, and I saw a partner, and I saw hope. But wait a minute, this is not easy. I mean, it's much easier to live with your own story. It's much easier to live with your own, whether guilt or rightness. And to pick up now those enemies in my shoulder, I'm already tired by my people. And now I have no choice. And they become, yes, my partners, and my life has changed. And actually, the ones who put me to that prison of the crime of the killer of my brother were the same people who released me from that prison. Because you never know where life will take you. I start touring the world with this message. I start building movements, and I end up building Tagir, the Palestinian National Nonviolence Movement. So that's the story of my personal transformation.
Thank you. I want to say I shared with this community many times before. The first time that I heard a Palestinian speaker share his perspective and his story, and I remember exactly where I was. I was in a synagogue in Santa Monica, not far from here, and the room was packed, and he got up and he said, "I'm going to tell you my story today," to a room full of Jews. And he said, "I'm going to tell you what happened in 1948 from my perspective. And some of you are going to get very angry, and you're going to want to get defensive, and you're going to want to jump out of your seats and even come up here and make me stop talking. But I'm asking you just to listen, because if we can't hear each other, if we can't see each other in our pain and in our beauty, we're never going to be able to take steps forward." And so I say that now because I also recognize, as you're speaking, Ali, that there might be some people in the room who maybe have never even heard perspectives like what you're sharing right now. And I really deeply appreciate the opportunity for us to continue to make ourselves uncomfortable hearing narratives, that counter narratives that we've been telling and have been told for many, many years. Often in the Jewish community, when we think about the intifadas, we're thinking about Jewish vulnerability, right? And I think that that's natural in some way. People look to their own extended families and for safety first. And so you're awakening us each time you speak. You're awakening us to what the experience is of the people who are on the other side of this very painful dynamic. And I'm so grateful to you for that, and grateful to this room for being big enough to hold that truth. Ali, the people who you started working with in the parents' circle, the bereaved family circle, have been doing this work now, like you, for decades. And in some ways, Israeli society now seems to be even more polarized than it was when the work began. We participate as a community from afar in the Yom HaZikaron commemoration, the Memorial Day commemoration, in which Israeli and Palestinian families speak about their loved ones who've died. And it's this year, I don't know how many of you were able to watch it, but you could hear the hecklers with bullhorns in the background trying to drown out the voices of Israeli Jews and Palestinians sharing about their own broken hearts. The humanity is that threatening to them and to the extremist movements. Can you just reflect on where you stand now after dedicating every moment of your life now for a couple of decades to the work? How do you feel about what's currently unfolding? And I don't mean necessarily about this. By the way, Sean told me there was a ceasefire just a couple hours ago. So please God, it holds and more lives are not lost. I don't mean it's specifically in this newest round of real violence, but in general, given the broader scope of history, based on when your activism really started and what you see now, many years later, how do you reflect on where the movement is going and where you see promise?
That's a great question. You know, you don't need me to tell you that it's so tiring to be an Israeli, so tiring to be a Palestinian, but it's more tiring to be a change maker because you swim against everything. When we created the Palestinian side of the Parent Circle Families Forum, then after a few years I got not tired actually. This is the best message on earth and the strongest one. I start thinking, why don't we achieve anything politically? I mean, then I realized some facts. And after the Parent Circle, and after speaking to many good Israelis who has become like my brothers and sisters, I realized that we're just talking to the good ones. And many Israelis will tell me, Ali, we stamp, we sign for you to have a state, just leave us alone, you know? And we even, you know what, we don't want to come to the West Bank. It's an occupied area. We don't want to speak to settlers because these are the devils of every harm. Then I realized that, I mean, you don't speak to your own people because you are pro-me. On the other hand, actually, you gave the settlers and the settlements the best offer. You step out of it and no one is bothering them. Because most of your rallies, demonstrations are happening in the nice Tel Aviv. And happening in 5-star peace conferences. And we create summer camps and we send our kids there and our kids go back to refugee camps with no water in their houses. And they got traumatized more. Why? Because first, they have discovered that the enemy is not an enemy. On the other hand, they have discovered what normal life is about. And no one gave them this sustainable system to continue peace activism. Because the conditions are different. What serve peace in Tel Aviv, not necessarily the same that serve peace in the Dheisheh refugee camp or in Gaza. We have to understand that. And I think the issue is within the peace movement, not the right, extreme right, because they are not right and they are minority. But they are organized, they have a strategy, they know how to harm, and one suicide bomber can affect the whole public opinion in Israel. We are led by what happens to us. We're not leading what is happening to us. And I landed in a heart of 12 settlements in a piece of land where you have been, belongs to my family. And I start building a nonviolence center. And I have to tell you, even though we own the land, but we have no right to do anything on the land. Many people told me that I lost my mind. Many people told me settlers will kill me or Palestinian will ever come here. And I started actually with a donkey who supported me. I don't know who was clever more than the other, but he was clever. And a group of settlers show up, and I mean, a priest from Virginia reached out to me that there is a group of Israeli settlers want to speak to me. And now here is my exam. Am I honest to myself when I say we should speak to settlers? And that was a very painful exam until I found myself having the deepest conversation about peace building, the deepest. Because if we were talking about borders, occupation, rights and human rights, that conversation was about identity. That was much deeper conversation. Then I created this initiative called Roots, the Israeli-Palestinian local initiative. And my life has not become easier because a lot of criticism. I think I am the only Palestinian who dare to create anything with settlers. And I had a very bad criticism, a traitor, a normalizer, all what you can imagine. But you know, to deal with this madness, you have to be enough crazy, right? So I launched that initiative 6 years ago, or more, 7 years ago. Since then, more than 250,000 people show up. So it seems like me and the donkey were clever. So anyways, then I said to myself, okay, that's good. That's a crack on the wall. But this is not going to be the majority. It will be inspiring for some people. What about my people? That I was not avoiding, but I was not investing enough. Because every single Israeli on earth and Jewish person want to see a Palestinian peace movement. And all my presentations, people always ask me, where is the partner? And I came back to my society 6 years ago, and I start launching a Palestinian independent national movement for nonviolence. تغيير, change, شنوي. And today, I am proud to say that we have thousands of people. We also act massively on the ground by hundreds of people. We have 23 groups all over West Bank. The biggest group is the women group of Nablus, 300 women. And we do many projects about alternative systems because our philosophy is not to resist the occupation. We don't want to resist the occupation. We want to end the occupation. Because resistance should not be a goal. And we don't want to do dialogue, honestly. First, we want to do dialogue with each other. Because if Palestinians will sustain a plan that will serve them, the beneficiaries will be Tel Avivis. Israelis will benefit from that because we are creating not victims. You know, the victimhood mentality. If two couples get divorced in Ramallah, it's the occupation to blame. Because it's easier, you know? We collect trash from the streets. We promote values of citizenship. We want to be independent, but we have no idea what does it mean to be a citizen. We are dealing with a corrupted, conflicted leadership. What would we do? What are we calling others, the world or Israelis, to be part of what? Where is the Palestinian agency that will connect the diaspora with inside? Where are the Palestinian resources, the Palestinian money? Why it's not invested? All of these big questions, the minute someone will start answering them, then we will be promoting a new model for people to give up violence. But today, people give up violence and they got nothing. They should benefit from that. This is the process of every community that adopt nonviolence. And amazing stories about transformation. What is happening in Israel today, which is about your question, it makes me so proud. This responsible society standing up for democracy. But if you switch the banner in these demonstrations, you will see Israeli Jewish morality, not just Israeli democracy. Because this occupation has been hidden under the table in Israel for decades. Now, we're facing it. Both sides are facing it. Palestinians are facing the divide, the corrupted leadership, the hopelessness, and looking at the mirror, in the mirror for the first time. We need to look in the mirror. It's much easier, believe me, to hug each other over hummus. The hummus and hugs, peaceful issues, these are the easiest thing. It's much easier to raise even fund, awareness, hope when it comes to the other side. you will sail hope to others, your life is easier. It's so hard to establish this movement and guarantee resources for this movement to grow because people just want to see the hugs, what to do. I mean, I don't mind, I like hugs. But hugs should not be the goal. Dialogue is not the goal. Dialogue is the tool for change, for the step next. So what is happening in Israel is showing us a responsible society. What Israel respond, what the society respond to manage their own politics. That we will definitely learn from. And we will stand up for those who want to stand for us. But no one will stand for us if we don't stand for ourselves. So it's not about peace building, it's about responsibility. We need a responsible society. And by the way, we don't need the majority. Follow the history. Change has not been happening through majorities. It's just with organized minorities. Because when you build a bridge, you don't need 1 million people. You need a group of professionals who build a bridge where millions can pass through. People are followers in general. And that's what keeps me going. What keeps me going are the both sides. And there are no angels, you know. I mean, we are human beings. We do mistakes. But where is this platform to understand us, to understand our pain, to understand our anger, to know that this violence is not about hate. We don't know each other to hate each other. It's about not being able to deal with the fear, not being able to deal with the anger, with the injustices. So nonviolence is not to heal. Nonviolence for us is an identity. This is not a tactic or a strategy. It's not a project. It's mostly who we are, especially Palestinian. We are confused between two identities, and you have to understand that. The identity of revolution that we used to be identifying with since years, when PLO was established. If you are a good Palestinian, destroy Israel. That was the value. How do we practice the relation with the land? But after Oslo, there is a new identity, which is citizenship, that we have never had. We have never had freedom. So today, young people wake up, are we part of revolution or we are citizens? And no one gives them answer. No, we are both. But this revolution should not cause us a price of our life. And we should not be proud of a freedom that can be achieved in Jewish bodies over Israeli graves. And it will not happen. Even if we want, it will never happen. Because both sides will defend themselves in any action. Because this is the only place where we both belong. We're not going anywhere. If Israelis think that Palestine can be transferred to the Arabs, I'm telling you, the Arabs hate us. They don't want us. And if we think that the world wants the Jews, we should go back to the history and learn. Right? So it's not about being Mandela. We need just responsible voices who will strategize hope. We need a plan for change. We never have it. The minute we will have it, I'm telling you, we can start having hope. Now it's belief. It has to be belief because what are we facing is so huge.
I want to make sure that I'm understanding you. It feels, I'm looking at the trajectory of your career as an activist, and it seems like there are different chapters that reflect a different kind of awareness that you're holding at different junctures in your life. And there was a point where you believed that resistance through rock throwing was the way to be heard. Then there was a point in which you recognized that you had a stronger resistance muscle through hunger strike and through nonviolent action than even through violence. Then there was a chapter of dialogue where you and it sounds like your family are in some ways transformed by meeting with Israeli Jews who also have broken hearts. That changed you on some level. And then there's a chapter in which you extend what you learned in the Bereaved Families Forum, that we have to see each other in our pain, in our identity, in our self-understanding, even to settlers who a lot of Israeli allies of yours won't even talk to, but you'll talk to them.
They stopped talking to me as well.
Okay.
My allies in Tel Aviv stopped talking to me because I talk to their people.
That's interesting. And now this chapter, if I'm understanding the trajectory right, is one in which dialogue is not the primary mode of advancing this conversation, but instead building power, building connection, building real clarity with your own Palestinian people so that you can actually meet, at some point, Israeli society as equals. And I think, okay, so I'm saying this because in the room is my sister, Devorah, who was really one of the leading activists in the peace and justice space when she lived in Israel. We have Mariam and Andrea and members of New Ground here. This is a Jewish-Muslim coalition to bring people together who don't normally sit together and start to learn each other's stories and honor each other's stories. And I can see how different pieces of the activism, we have Janet Halbert, who's basically dedicated her life to trying to fight for a two-state solution, one way out of this. I remember you talking about confederation before it was popular, like 18 years ago. I'll remember that. Ali told me first.
Divorce and the marriage.
Yeah. I mean, in this room are incredible activists, each of whom, Rama, right? Each of whom had dedicated themselves to different pieces of the work that, and in your life, I think you've moved through all of these phases of the work. And I think my sense is that it's all of it has a place in this story. All of the nonviolent mechanisms for social change are going to have to be activated in order to get us out of this quagmire. And that means, I think, that the dialogue piece, which is not at the forefront of your work right now, and your criticism of it, I really resonate to. I resonate to the peace camp criticism, because some people go home to a life of privilege, and some people go home to a life behind barbed wire. We have to hear that feedback and take that seriously. I resonate to the limits of dialogue, and also I know that only through us meeting and encountering each other, and me hearing you say, as you did the first time we met, I think you said something like, when your brother was killed, you found yourself fantasizing about killing a Jew. And then you realized, tell me if I'm getting this wrong, you didn't want to kill one Jew, you wanted to kill 10 Jews, you were so angry. And then you wanted to kill 100, and then 1,000, and then you broke down and you said, even if I killed all the Jews, my brother wouldn't come back. And so the only path is going to be a nonviolent path. And I remember you sharing that, and that changed my heart. So I also, as much as the dialogue path is problematic, I also feel like, thank you for being willing to dialogue with me and with us, because I wouldn't have be the person I am if you hadn't shared that. And at the same time, your focus right now is not on the dialogue piece, but on the building Palestinian society so that it can be a society of real strength and dignity, so that one day we can affect a different kind of outcome. I just want to make sure I'm understanding the trajectory as you share it, because I think there's a lot of opportunity for us in learning about the different nonviolent mechanisms for social change and activating many of those mechanisms at once in order to bring about the kind of transformative change that we hope will be possible.
Wow.
It's just my analysis.
Now I understand. Now you taught me. You taught me about your leadership, because I heard about you a lot. Now I see a leader. I mean, thank you so much. Yeah, it's amazing to speak to leaders who have morality and mind and heart as well. So yes, I'm not saying, please don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying joint initiatives are not needed. I was transformed by these initiatives. But they are not enough. We should not just do dialogue and that's it. I didn't leave Roots, by the way. Yes, I'm not representing them, because if I stay at Roots with settlers, in my community, people will not accept me, because it's considered as normalization. How do you normalize with Israelis? So I wanted to create a secure place for Palestinians to adopt nonviolence without fearing the criticism of the anti-normalization movement. And guess what? It works. It works because people feel secure. They cannot be accused talking to the other. And honestly, Israelis doesn't want just someone to talk to them. They want a responsible society that will partner with them, right? This is what the right wing say. There is no partner. So let's create this partner. Because no one creates that partner. Maybe you are not partner, but people are not able to look at the mirror. By the end of the day, we lose if there is no peace, not just Israel. I mean, peace for Israel also is a risk to take. It's a sacrifice to have, right? It's about land. It's about trusting someone who's in your home to get him free. What he will do? Shall he be shooting rockets on you or what? I mean, all of this fear and what we experience now. So nonviolence will create the values to protect the agreement, not just to push for the agreement. Because it creates itself. Stephen say, in this trip, we fly the plane, but we build the plane while we are flying the plane. And this is the secret of it, because people will start not just reconciling between the two confusing identities, but they will start take benefit by their leadership on the ground. Sustainable system, alternative systems. This is what is needed. And Israelis, Jewish people are the first people should support that. Because Israel will benefit from that at the first place, including the Palestinian diaspora and the Arabs and everyone. So for me, standing with this movement is risk. But you know what? I'm grateful for that risk. Because all of my life was about risks. And maybe it's better to sacrifice for solution than sacrifice for a conflict. Especially when you realize that this conflict is endless. And I always tell Palestinians, our nonviolence approach will work. You know why? Because there is enough humanity in Israel for our humanity to be seen. But we need to show it.
I want to give a couple minutes for folks to ask questions and to engage Ali. So we'll take, let's say, 2 or 3 questions, and I'm just going to invite you to do the opposite of what I've been doing, which is talk for a long time and then ask a question. But I'm the worst model of this. But to please just because be cognizant that we want to hear from a bunch of folks. So, and Scott, will you just, for each person, will you just introduce yourselves first and then ask your question?
Scott Schulman. Former journalist, spent a lot of time in Gaza and the West Bank. How do you cut through the fear that Israelis have? My experience is that my friends in Israel, who are very liberal people, when I mention to them that I had dinner in East Jerusalem, or I traveled somewhere in the West Bank, they convulse with fear. Like, how can you do that? And these are free-thinking people. How do you cut through that fear?
First, I don't deal with Israelis as victims or survivors. The world still treats Israelis as survivors. And they treat us as victims. And this is the biggest wrong treatment. I speak with Israelis as partners, as responsible people. So if they have fear, they have part of that to overcome. It's their responsibility. As our part is to overcome our anger, that create also that fear. That's number one. Number two, Israel need to see a movement. They need to see another speech. You know, I start saying, we should stop arguing identities. Let's learn how to start arguing behaviors. Because occupation, violence are behaviors. But let's recognize each other's identity. This will overcome that fear when Jewish people in Israel feel that their identity is recognized. In my manifesto, I wrote a manifesto of 100 pages. I said, it's the time now for us Palestinians to choose. Are we recognizing the political right of Israel to exist, or we are ready to recognize the legitimate Jewish belonging to that land that we call home? That's a different recognition. So Israel has also to decide, are you occupying people for security, or are you occupying land for ideology? Because if it's about security, yes, it's a mutual responsibility. But it's about ideology, there is no place for us. What are we talking about? So this fear also is not because of violence or the past. This fear also is because of the price. Is Israel willing to take this painful step toward peace? That's the question. But Israel will not, as long as we stab pregnant women, shoot rockets, so send suicide bombers. It will not. Actually, we will fuel the occupation by that, not the opposite. So it's all about looking at the mirror. And finally, the Israeli and Jewish fear should not legitimize any act against our dignity. Because everyone has his own problem. And everyone has, I always say, we both guilty and we are both right. We need to figure it out.
Well, thank you. I'm gonna, I see a couple hands in the back, and then I know we have a bunch of teenagers in the room, and I just want to say if any of our students who are here want to ask a question, I'm going to keep eyes out for you too. So there's one in the back. Two. Okay.
Hi, Ali. Thank you so much for speaking with us and sharing so openly. My name is Sammy Rosenbaum. I'm about to be a graduate of rabbinical school, so I'll be a rabbi in a week.
Mazel tov.
Thank you. So my question for you is about the current culture in America and around the world around anti-Zionism and around Apartheid Week on college campuses, and the general understanding of the Israeli-Palestinian situation amongst young folks, especially college students, and what you see could be ways to potentially move past that, or how do you see it from your view of, anti-Israel rallies, Jewish students being harassed on campus, Jewish speakers not being allowed to speak because their presentation is being protested. And so I'm curious from your point of view how you see that, and maybe even moving past that with your wisdom.
I'll try to be short. I responded to that through my manifesto. I'm going to upset many of those that you just spoke about. I'm going to upset them because pushing Jewish people blindly to support Israel because of that is a support of occupation. Maybe I'm too tough here, but this is the truth. On the other hand, it doesn't make sense to tell Palestinians, don't work in Israel without building factories for them to feed their kids. This is unjust. Number three, we're not equal. And I'm aware of that. I know that there is occupation and there is occupied. But I believe that we, peace activists, has never established a strategy that call people to be part of it. That's why people criticize. But let's offer them another role, an effective one. A role that will not speak just to their emotions. Because of the unbalanced situation, we need a plan that fits there. A plan that the biggest investment will be by changing life conditions, not just transforming heart and mind. The investment will be more in the Palestinian side. Then they will not dare to criticize the movement because we promote life, we promote conditions. This is what we do in Taghyr. That's why people follow us. That's why it's so hard to criticize us. We got one criticism by the BDS movement because we are part of a coalition called AllMap. All map is like 150 Israeli-Palestinian organization that nothing, they don't do anything together. It's a coalition to guarantee money from the US government to peace building. That's all. Finally, I think those voices has no offer to give. This emptiness, you know, being angry is very easy. I mean, judging is easy. But when you judge something, you have to face yourself if you are so true to yourself. If I say no to this, what do I say yes for? I wrote to Abbas, I told him when Trump was elected, okay, you reject that. Where is the Palestinian peace plan? Now it's your time. Not the Saudi peace initiative, not Camp David. It's the Palestinian peace initiative. Let's embarrass this guy and tell him we have a plan. Israelis will push for that, right? So we need to create alternatives because these guys has to be embarrassed by our actions, has to be shame of these voices that just divide us. We never create that. That's why I go to campuses. I got any opportunity to speak to Palestinians because it's not to become a lover of the Jews. I mean, what I'm doing here, I'm serving my people. It's before anyone else. And I will keep doing that. Whether Israelis are happy or not, they need more than happiness. They need solution. They need more than hope. They need solution, both sides. So let's do it. I mean, we are capable enough. Israelis and Palestinians build countries around them. But when it comes to us, we're stuck. We're the top educated people in the world, not just in the Middle East. We can. But we need this platform with a plan and commitment, and the peace movement has to change itself. Sorry. The Zionist movement has to answer big questions, tough questions. I mean, Israel has no constitution. This is very important and challenging as well. We confuse the word. Is it Hamas representing us or the PA? There is a lot of homework to be done. That's my point.
Thank you. Okay, I know that someone from, we're going to have a new ground question. I see Sean, and do we have a teen? We have a Rabbi Dr. Avi Chavivi. Okay, any teenagers? I'm going to give you a chance. Okay, we'll go to Avi, and if you decide you want to speak, any of you. Okay, so Ben, all right, we'll do this quickly, and thank you all. We'll take just a few more minutes together.
I'm Avi. I was once a teen. So I'm interested to know, this is really about organizing and politics, how your movement is viewed in Palestine and the West Bank. How does the PA deal with you? There are also a lot of Hamas allegiances on the West Bank. So how is it going with organizing and politics?
Thanks, Avi.
Just recently, I mean, I love the description of Gandhi. How does he describe success? He said, first, they ignore you. Seems like you don't exist. Second, they tease you, provoke. Third, they attack you. Fourth, you win.
Wow.
This is the process. In the beginning, they didn't pay attention. Actually, they offered us money because of your friend, that strategic advisor of Abbas. They offered us money, we refused to take their money. Anyways. Sorry, Stephen. You know, blame the Jew. This is the easiest thing. No, I love him. That guy is amazing, but that's why he's... anyways. So recently, we had an activity a few months ago. We brought 1,500 Palestinians to Masafir Yatta, to South Hebron Hills, where the clashes are happening. For the first time, 1,500 Palestinians stood up. We sent even a video to J Street Conference, telling them we are here. So it's not just you pushing for us, we push for ourselves. And suddenly, the Abbas office sent us a spokesperson. He came to the stage like Mandela. Sorry, bullshit. Another liar. That's it. But we don't care. So there will be a level that we will be attacked. That's why we are led also by what we call them messengers of change, 72 great community leaders, people who served 20 years in prison. No one will dare to look at them and say you are doing whatever, So you have also to build it. It's like always, do you want to be right or do you want to succeed? Because if it's about success, you have to be a great manager as well. I'm not. I'm a good leader, but I'm not a manager. We have also to allow others to manage us and to trust others. The uniqueness of Taghyir that everyone feel a leader, not just a follower. I give a long answer. You should tell me, close your mouth. I will. Yeah.
No Jew in this room is going to tell you to close your mouth. You're going to have to self-regulate on that. I really quickly, Sean, and then Andrea, and then we'll close unless the teens want to say one last word. Sean?
So Sean and I have teens. This question is actually for both of you. Because I'm guessing, Rabbi Brous, that when you were speaking at the protest in Kfar Saba some weeks ago, the word Palestine probably wasn't even mentioned once. Ali, right, we go back a while. I'm thinking about the reality that the greatest gift to Bibi this week was attacks on Israel because it was a deflection from, right, and you would see it the same way. What is the strategy now? Because I'd much rather Israel hear from you than from, say, Nasrallah saying how it's a great time to attack Israel. And what's the strategy on the protest side? Do we not talk about this issue because it will divide a united populace, or do we talk about it in spite of that? So for both, for both of you, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the now.
Well, Sean is referencing that when I was invited to speak, I was told by the organizers of the protests that there's certain words that we are not speaking in these protests, including Palestine occupation pogrom. And I actually, as I just shared with some folks last night, I really struggled, so then do you not take the stage? Because if you're given a platform but you're not allowed to say things that you think need to be said, what do you do? And I realized in this moment that it was better to say something, even though I couldn't say everything. And I spoke about the need for dignity and equality and justice for all people living in this land. And so it was and a lot of people are doing this in the protests. It is a kind of very clearly coded language to say exactly what I yearn for and what many of us believe in. There was a strategic decision made by the protest leaders that in order to stop the judicial coup, which is the train barreling off the cliff, that they had to have a big tent movement, and that meant that they were going to suppress certain voices. That does not feel good to a lot of people. However, they have been extremely successful because it's been 16 weeks in a row, with the exception of tonight, because I think they called off the protest because they were worried about the safety of the protesters tonight. And there is there's a small but strong anti-occupation bloc at all of the protests. And those are the people who are holding signs, Ein Demokratia im Kivush, there's no democracy if there's occupation, speaking in a different kind of language. I think many of the people in this room would resonate to and find their way toward the anti-occupation bloc to strengthen it. That bloc is growing over the course of these weeks, and this protest movement is not about ending the occupation. This is not about Palestinian dignity. Unfortunately, the massive influx of people every single Saturday night at protests are not there because they're devastated by the housing demolitions in Area C. They're there because they believe that the democracy that Jews in Israel have experienced is at risk. And I believe, and the reason that I very much support the protests and feel optimistic about the protests nevertheless, that when you shout and chant and hold signs and preach democracy, equality, justice, and dignity for all, week after week after week, at some point, you start to realize what you're saying and start to believe your own words and begin to imagine that we can manifest a kind of reality in which that is true, not only for Jews who live in that land, but for all the people who live in that land.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And let's not forget that this is the first time a massive movement in Israel stand for a political issue. Democracy is a political issue. And I always said there is these two banners, morality and democracy. And in my opinion, this movement has to be supported, and the expectation about the occupation should not be so high, because if they succeed in what they rise for now, they will grow to rise for other things. But first, they have to succeed with no weakness. Raising the occupation issue is like handling the death penalty for the protest itself. And I can understand deeply that. So we should consider that. And believe me, the first thing that I want to see as Palestinian is in the occupation in Tel Aviv. But sometimes, again, do you want to succeed or do you want to be right? So, and I think they are clever enough to, they know what to do. On the other hand, they need the other side. As you said, not the rockets of the other side. But let me tell you one thing. Maybe 1 month ago, I was telling Stephen, the only savior for Netanyahu from his own people is a war with Gaza. I said that in public 2 months ago, or 1 month ago, after the demonstration, when they start growing. And it's an ugly game, I'm sorry. These guys, I mean, Netanyahu is the best manager and creator of Jewish fear. He created that fear and he invested in politics. On the other hand, I know that what is happening from the Palestinian side is not helping. But people don't believe on it. People are fed up. People are tired. And they feel it comes back to itself. Every 2-3 years, another war, then ceasefire, and that's it. So people start giving up in their own leadership and their own, movements that use them as fuel for their own politics. And it's happening. Finally, the good thing that this right-wing government did, they brought the conflict to argue the identity issue. It's not about just security. It's not about borders. Now, what is happening within the subtler right-wing movement, within the government, there is a question between Israelis and Palestinians on the table now, the identity. And that's a big step, in my opinion. But it needs a massive, huge grassroots efforts.
Thank you. Andrea, we'll give you the last question here.
I am generally a rule follower, but I actually want to make a statement. Is that okay? Okay. Oh, thank you.
You've earned the right.
Thank you. So I want to speak to Ali. So first of all, it's just amazing to hear you in this setting. And we spoke a couple, this sounds like there's a big, all right, I'm okay. We spoke at the beginning of your trip. Ali came and spoke to New Ground, some alumni, some stakeholders, and we had a couple of Palestinians in the room, and it was awesome because they asked you questions we didn't know to ask. One of the things that came out of that, I'd like to speak to the work that we need to do as American Jews. We have homework too, I think. You talked about the homework that needs American Jews, American Palestinians, and American Muslims. I think there's so much that Jews don't know about American Muslim experience. And I found out one of those things in the room. You suggested that the best thing that could happen for your friend, so I'm going to do your job too, because you were talking about fundraising, and to have Muslims and Jews come together to support this work. And in the room was a friend of mine who I met here when you came the first time, a Palestinian woman who is one of the most peace-seeking human beings I know. I love her. And she came up to me afterward and she said, I can't do that. I can't do that because it's dangerous for me. I can't do that because I have family members who are in jail for raising money for Palestinian well-being. And I think American Jews don't understand the surveillance that Muslims are under all the time, and especially Palestinians. So I just want to name that. And I want us to understand, like, the other piece I was at a Palestinian friend's iftar during Ramadan, and I had the opportunity to meet this amazing freshman from USC. And she said to me, when I say I'm Palestinian, people tell me I'm anti-Semitic. And I feel like I have to, like I look at people's Facebook pages and sometimes I feel like I need to shut them off. And I feel it was such a parallel, like there's this mirror thing that happens. So we have these kids on college campuses, our Jewish kids. My kid was one of them. She's a progressive kid and she felt like she needed to start her own progressive thing inside the Hillel because just because she has a connection with Israel, she wasn't accepted in progressive political spaces. And here's this young Palestinian woman who wants to be connected. She's saying, I feel like when I'm on Facebook, I need to show that I'm against anti-Semitic incidents, both because I care about people, but also because I want people to see I'm not anti-Semitic. And so I feel like our work here is to come together, to be able to support efforts like your effort. And that is going to take what you were talking about at the beginning. So is taking a moment to open whatever part of our heart to see things in new ways. Because Rashida Tlaib, who, if I say her name, I know that that's going to bring up a lot of really, really hard things for a lot of people in here. She was interviewed by a Jewish high school, and she said she was speaking about I have questions and issues of what it would mean to uproot Jews, Israelis, from some long-standing settlements. And I know that many people here in this country, many Jews feel fear. And there are very good reasons for us to feel fear. And I want us to be able to do a better job of moving past that fear, of creating these openings to let one another's narratives in, because I think it's the only way that we get through this. And I'm sorry I took up time, but I'm grateful for your work.
Thank you, Andrea. And I want to say, Mariam and Andrea are both here. If you have questions about New Ground and want to get involved with Muslim-Jewish work here in Los Angeles, I hope that you'll take the opportunity to connect afterwards. I know a lot of folks in our community have. Stephen, I want you to invite you to come up and just share some words about how folks can support this work now, if they're so moved to do so, and it's your birthday, so it feels like the appropriate way to close our gathering today.
You sang happy birthday to me earlier at Ali's behest. Born the day before the British left the Palestine Mandate. You know, something has been so reinforced for me in a beautiful way by this conversation. Sometimes in the pit of my stomach, doing the work I've done with Ali or other work within the Jewish community, I get impatient in saying, we Jews, we always think it's about us. And yes, it's about us, but it's about the other and our relationship to us. But what I have learned is that being for a Palestinian movement that through social change, self-development, organizing Palestinians in cooperative action to change the environment that can lead to a peaceful solution and end the occupation is about the Jews as well as about the Palestinians. And it's a difficult ask that we make because why don't you work with Israelis? But Ali works for Palestinians in order to work for Israelis. I mean, the connection is always there. So on the back table, you'll see there is a promotional flyer about the work of Tahir on the ground. This is what we need support for. There's my business card. There's a way to give support. We're not just looking for financial response. I sometimes feel like the latter-day version of the donkey with Ali going around. There are many wonderful people. I mean, I see people who have given of themselves at various times to help, bring Ali to the fore. Get in touch with us. Get in touch with me if you think that you want to be part of something, not necessarily through financial resources, to sustain this movement. And then beyond that, there's a card with a picture of Ali on it. You've seen him talk about the manifesto, in which is, yes, it tells you why Tahir was formed, but it goes beyond that into what personal, social transformation personal and social transformation, how they can happen and make societal change. You can get, just by giving your email, you'll get a excerpt from that. We're negotiating with a terrific publisher, the one who published Michelle Alexander's The New Jim Crow. I mean, something that can make a difference in terms of the conversation. And then there are other big things involved with that. Ali, in Beit Umar, hundreds of meters from where his brothers were killed, in a place where they can get building permits, is building an international nonviolence center. If you're interested in that, be in touch with that. It's a lot, but I mean, you've given a lot to us, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Stephen. Well, for those who've been sticking around IKAR, our week began with the mayor of Tel Aviv, Ron Huldai, who's been a mayor for 25 years in Tel Aviv, talking to us about his vision for a just and peaceful future. And our week closes with you and your wonderful voice. And I'm just so deeply grateful to you, Ali. And I hope anytime you're in Los Angeles, you know that you will find a welcome home here. And I hope that God blesses you with continued strength and continued both strategy, moral clarity, and also hope. We're so grateful to be your friend. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. Shabbat shalom.
We'll say Birkat Hamazon if anyone wants to stick around for a blessing. Shir Hamalel Peshuv Adonai Et Shivat Zion Ayinu Kechomim.